Hello, my name is George Cunningham, and I serve as the Senior Associate Dean for the Graduate and Professional School. It's my honor to welcome you to the Texas A&M University Distinguished Dissertation Award Ceremony. Today we honor 4 award recipients and 4 finalists. Each of their dissertations made a significant, meaningful contribution to the field. We recognize awardees in 4 categories: biological sciences and life sciences, humanities and fine arts, social sciences, and mathematics, physical sciences, and engineering. We also recognize the George W. Kunze Endowed Graduate Student Recipient, which honors the current graduate student with an outstanding dissertation. Each of the awardees receives a cash prize and a certificate of recognition. Finally, we extended the offer to each awardee and committee chair to offer comments about the work. In most cases, the individuals were able to do so. Where they were not, we share an overview of the research and its impact.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Justin Andrews, the winner of the George Kunze Endowed Graduate Student Award. Justin was a NASA fellow at Texas A&M over the course of his graduate studies. His dissertation, he really did enough work to fill 3 full dissertations. His dissertation looked at unveiling a whole new atlas of metastable compounds with tremendous implications in a number of different technologies, for instance, for brain-inspired computing, for solar photocatalysis, and beyond lithium-ion batteries. Justin has received some of the highest honors in the discipline, including the Graduate Student Award from the Materials Research Society, the Wilhelm und Elsa Harrier Stiftung Prize in Germany, the Best Poster Award from the Molecular Foundry, and numerous departmental honors. He's currently a postdoctoral researcher at MIT in the Department of Chemistry.
Hello, my name is Justin Andrews, and I'm very excited to tell you just a little bit about the research that I have lived and breathed over the past several years while working under the guidance of my advisor, Professor Sarbajit Banerjee. My research efforts fall under the larger umbrella of solid-state materials research, but I've been focused on metastable vanadium oxides and their applications. More specifically, I have focused on developing synthetic techniques for accessing so-called metastable structures, or specific arrangements of atoms that are not the most favorable under a given set of conditions. The problem is that we would very much like to study these metastable materials, but they are often very difficult to make. To this end, we were able to expand the number of accessible metastable structures within the vanadium oxide phase space and study their properties in a variety of disparate applications. And I will briefly tell you about 3 of them. In the first example, these techniques allowed us to design a metastable material that represents the first high voltage, high capacity oxide cathode material for magnesium batteries. This is critical because it helps us think about how to design materials for the next generation of beyond lithium-ion batteries, something that's urgently needed in energy storage. In a second example, these approaches allowed us to synthesize one of our dream materials, a metastable tin vanadium oxide, which we had previously thought to be synthetically inaccessible. Using these techniques, we were subsequently able to show that this material performs very well in photocatalysis, helping to mitigate problems associated with photocorrosion. In a final example, this approach has allowed us to tune instabilities in the electrical transport properties of these materials, paving the way towards the design of circuitry capable of brain-like computing that further promises to be more energy efficient than current technologies based on silicon.
It's a pleasure to introduce Majon Wang and briefly summarize her accomplishments. Majon began her toxicology doctoral program in my laboratory in 2016. And since that time, she has always exceeded my highest expectations. Majon is a marvelous problem solver. She was inspired by her parents, who are both academicians in China, to be out of the box and creative at an early age. To Majon, science has been a mixture of discovery, passion, wonder, excitement, and technology transfer. Majon's doctoral work was sponsored by an NIEHS Superfund research project that's focused on the development of edible high-affinity enterosorbents for diverse toxins and toxicants. In only 4 years, Machen has produced 12 first-authored publications in top journals, plus 5 others for a total of 17. She's also a co-inventor of a patent and a license associated with her dissertation work. I'm certain that Dr. Majon Wang's accomplishments at Texas A&M University will lead to a very bright future as a toxicologist.
My dissertation research has addressed the daunting problems resulting from exposure to hazardous chemicals and chemical mixtures that are prevalent and persistent in the environment and threaten public and human health during natural disasters and emergencies. Although research has focused on environmental remediation, there is a critical need for field practical strategies to minimize human and animal exposures from contaminated diet. Therefore, my objective was to develop edible therapeutic enterosorbents for inclusion in food and water to detoxify a broad spectrum of complex environmental chemicals, and thus protect the vulnerable, including underserved communities and neighborhoods, first responders, frontline personnel, and those involved in the management of disasters. As part of my research, I've developed novel multi-component processed and chemically amended binding materials and characterized their safety and surface interactions with chemicals and chemical mixtures using complementary in vitro, in silico, and in vivo studies. A major finding and innovation of my work was the discovery of acid-processed maronites, APMs, that combine and mitigate diverse classes of toxic chemicals more effectively than all other sorbents tested, including commercial carbon. This groundbreaking work has resulted in a patent application. Moreover, an exclusive worldwide license has been issued through TAMU for facilitating the transfer, manufacturing, and translation of APM and other novel sorbent technologies from our laboratory. The project-to-field pathway for the application of these edible sorbents has been firmly established through collaborations with our industry partnerships. Edible and broad-acting enterosorbents will be delivered through capsules, nutritional supplements, snacks, flavored liquids, and complete feed to minimize chemical exposures in people and animals following disasters and emergencies.
I'm Hari Sridhar at Texas A&M, and I'm delighted that Zhiyun Chen, a student that Vikas and I co-chaired and now an assistant professor at Notre Dame, has won the Texas A&M University Distinguished Dissertation Award. Zhiyun's dissertation is unique because marketing as a field has always focused on how to grow sales and revenue, but Zhiyun has broadened the role of marketing in some way with this dissertation by looking at how it impacts social and economic outcomes. He focuses on two very, very important areas in today's day and age. One, in the healthcare sector, he looks at how marketing, specifically individualized targeting, can help improve cancer screening probabilities and therefore save money and lives. He uses state-of-the-art methodologies and amazing data in collaboration with UT Southwestern to produce an award-winning paper. In the second essay, he looks at how internet access in schools affects school outcomes, both disciplinary and academic outcomes. Zhiyun is slowly part of a paradigm that's changing the way we look at marketing, and we are so delighted that he's in the forefront of something that's cutting edge in the field. Proud of you, Zhiyun.
Hello, my name is Zhiyun Chen. I am an assistant professor of marketing at the University of Notre Dame. I received my PhD in business and administration from the Texas A&M University in 2020. I am co-advised by Dr. Hari Sridhar at Texas A&M and Dr. Vikas Mittal at Rice. It is a great honor to receive the 2021 Texas A&M Distinguished Dissertation Award, and I'm very excited to share my dissertation with you today. My dissertation examines the social impact of marketing interventions in healthcare and education sectors. Cancer screening can save lives through early detection, but screening rates are still very low. In Essay 1, I combined a novel field experiment involving 1,800 at-risk patients for liver cancer with machine learning methods to show that Outreach efforts using mails and patient navigators can increase screening rates by 10 to 24 percentage points. And more importantly, that personalized outreach efforts that match patients to their most suitable type of outreach efforts can further increase the screening rates and save more money for the healthcare system. Public school districts spend big dollars on internet connectivity every year, but the payoffs are not clear. In SA2, using a rich data set that combines school district internet access spending with public schools' academic performance and disciplinary records, I find that internet access spending increases test scores, but also disciplinary problems. The financial implication is that a $600,000 increase in annual internet access spending produces a gain of approximately $0.8 to $1.8 million, alongside losses of roughly $26,000 to $53,000. In addition, the positive and negative consequences of internet access spending are more pronounced in regions with richer household internet access, suggesting the importance of considering the joint impact of home internet access and institutional internet access. Thank you very much.
I am proud to introduce Dr. Deanna Stover, winner of TAMU's Distinguished Dissertation Award in Humanities and Fine Arts. Dr. Stover's dissertation examines the connection between violence and toys in pre-First World War British literature as a form of commentary on adult-child relations, especially those between author and reader. Her central contribution is to highlight the connection of war games to efforts to regulate and/or describe playful yet oppositional relationships between adults and children. She defended the dissertation in May 2020 and is now an assistant professor of digital humanities at Christopher Newport University. Dr. Stover's work has earlier been recognized by awards from, among other granting agencies, Princeton University and the Australasian Children's Literature Association for Research. The high honor conferred on her today is a fitting capstone for a consistently outstanding performance as a PhD student at Texas A&M. Congratulations, Dr. Stover.
Framed by the Napoleonic Wars and World War I, Deadly Toys, Many Worlds and Wars, 1815 to 1914, explores British literary representations of toy wars to argue that toy violence helps to illustrate concerns about adult-child power structures during the long 19th century. Drawing upon archival research I conducted at the Bronte Parsonage, Chapter 1 examines how the Bronte siblings played at war in their juvenile poetry, showing a precocious understanding of trauma. While the Bronte children fantasize about being all-powerful authors and characters in their vast imaginary worlds, my second chapter argues that children's literature authors such as Edith Nesbit and Lewis Carroll compulsively reestablish dominance over both children and their enviable playthings by creating toy worlds featuring children stymied by logical rules and potential, if not actual, violence. My third chapter distinguishes between war play and war games in works by H.G. Wells and Robert Louis Stevenson, who criticize and then promptly take over children's play. My final chapter looks at how popular press maps at the turn of the century, complete with cutout toy soldiers and flags, gamify real war, effectively abstracting and distancing the trauma of military conflict that the Bronte children were so aware of. Looking at a variety of genres, juvenilia, children's literature, war game manuals, and popular press maps enables a deeper engagement with a cultural moment that allowed war to be used as a metaphor for adult-child power constructs.
I am so privileged to introduce Dr. Tabina Chowdhury, a graduate of our doctoral program in clinical psychology, and her dissertation examining prognostic indicators of Alzheimer's disease. Dr. Chowdhury's longitudinal research targeted prediction of functional declines in Alzheimer's patients, and her findings provide caregivers and family members greater opportunity to adjust and to take a more proactive approach to patient care. Dr. Chowdhury's research has significant social impact, and her cutting-edge work is eminently deserving of recognition with this Distinguished Dissertation Award.
Hi there. My name is Tabina Chowdhury, and I'm currently a first-year neuropsychology resident at the Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center in Houston, Texas. Broadly, I'm interested in neuropsychological assessment and psychotherapeutic interventions for older adults, particularly dementia patients. More specifically, I'm interested in utilizing neuropsychological assessment data to inform non-pharmacological interventions for dementia patients and their caregivers to promote functional independence and facilitate psychological adjustment to newly diagnosed dementia. My dissertation research was designed to identify prodromal indicators of functional ability in a sample of Alzheimer's disease patients, with the hope that such indicators could be utilized for earlier diagnosis and intervention. The overarching goals of my research efforts are to optimize patient prognosis and quality of life following dementia diagnosis, alleviate caregiver burden, and reduce individual and systemic healthcare costs associated with dementia care.
It is a real pleasure to introduce Dr. Nihal Salim. Nihal is a graduate of the Texas A&M Institute for Neuroscience PhD program and one of our stars. During the course of her PhD, she co-authored and published 9 peer-reviewed research papers, including 3 first-author papers and 4 review articles and book chapters. Nihal was the recipient of the McGovern Award from the Texas Research Society on Alcoholism and the Timothy Cudd Research Award from the Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Study Group, our international professional society for the study of developmental disabilities. Nihal was also the first graduate student from Texas A&M University to receive the prestigious F99 K00 Fellowship Award from the National Institutes of Health. This award supported her PhD research and will continue to support the future postdoctoral training at the University of Texas at Austin Wagner Center for Alcohol and Addiction Research.
Prenatal alcohol exposure is the leading cause of neurodevelopmental disorders in the United States. It is prevalent. A recent study in Texas showed 8% of the sample newborns to be positive for alcohol exposure in the last months of pregnancy. Prenatal alcohol exposure results in fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, which is a cluster of physical and neurobehavioral anomalies. This figure summarizes what we know about the effects of PAE on proliferation and migration of cells in the developing brain. In the first chapter of my dissertation, I identified the novel long non-coding RNA dysregulated by alcohol exposure in neural stem cells. I utilized this cell culture model to model the effects of human first to second trimester binge alcohol exposure. We know that prenatal alcohol exposure affects different cell types differently. In the second chapter, I utilized mouse model of PAE. Mice were exposed to alcohol on gestational day 12.5, and I used single-cell RNA sequencing to identify cell type and sex-specific effects of alcohol exposure on the developing cortex on gestational day 14.5. Collectively, my research showed long non-protein coding RNAs as novel mediators of the effects of a teratogen like alcohol on brain development. Investigating those mediators and their mechanisms are critical to the development of potential interventions to reverse the effects of teratogens. The results from the 2 chapters are published in Neurotoxicology and Teratology Journal and iScience. If you are interested in more details, I invite you to read them.
Next, we recognize Liang Feng. A graduate from the Department of Chemistry, Feng's research focused on metal organic frameworks. During his time at the university, he published 44 papers, including 28 as first author. His committee chair, Hongkai Zhao, commented, quote, "It is clear that Dr. Liang Feng is a rare individual who has made critical research breakthroughs of enormous significance in the field of coordination chemistry and metal organic frameworks." End quote. Congratulations.
In chemistry, reactions that happen in the gas or liquid phase are well understood. However, in the solid phase, chemical reactions are less explored due to the disorder of the solid and also the lack of characterization tools. The invention of crystalline metal organic frameworks is a game changer. I have spent years conducting graduate research in designing this porous material named the MOFs and applying multiple techniques to visualize the chemical reaction inside the pores. I can not only exchange the chemical bonds, but also selectively remove or migrate some chemical bonds to create a larger pores with a high precision. I can even expand or shrink the whole crystal based on the ligand exchange. In the past, that would be unimaginable, because normally if you have a network of strong bonds in the solid state, it requires an extremely high temperature and pressure to go from one structure to another, such as in the case of converting graphite to the diamond. But in a morph, due to the porosity, you can achieve it very easily through the pore engineering. So now I have a toolkit to modify the porosity, functionality, and the other features of the pores almost at will. It's a very powerful set of tools, which enable a new way of arranging atoms in 3D space. The hierarchical pores can control what is happening inside the pores physically, chemically, or even biologically.
Dr. Adebayo Anthony Oluwayomi's dissertation entitled The Power of Knowledge and the Knowledge of Power, Envisioning the Discourse of Black Epistemology and Africana Philosophy is excellent. His work demonstrates that epistemic injustice arguments asserting that black people are not believed because they do not have testimonial credibility as speakers and knowers about racism, their own lives, or the world are wrong. The problem with this notion of credibility is that it locates truth in the white perceiver, where the black knower remains passive and the white knower becomes an agent of moral reform to consider what is being said by the black knower as true. Dr. Oluwayomi says this is an incorrect formulation of the epistemological stake black peoples have in articulating philosophy. He suggests that since the Enlightenment, philosophy has constructed black experience through terms that are aimed at convincing and appealing to the white knower. Consequently, the black knower remains passive and doomed to have epistemological power only insofar as black experience is recognized as known by whites. This is a groundbreaking dissertation that points out the fatal flaw in the epistemic injustice literature.
This ceremony has certainly highlighted one point. Our graduate students are engaged in meaningful research that is impacting the state, country, and world. The individuals we highlighted today are truly exceptional, and this is undoubtedly the beginning of a wonderful career to come. Thank you again for participating in this ceremony, and congratulations to all the recipients.